in our culture, and especially in our sport, in equestrian, we set goals and we think, oh, I have to accomplish them.
Yeah.
But spoiler alert, I say, if you're succeeding at half of your goals, you're setting your goals correctly.
Does the thought of goal setting make you freeze, roll your eyes, or feel like it's just one more thing to fail at? You're not the only one. That's because goal setting is actually quite hard. It's not just a buzzword. It's intentional work that helps you reflect, shift your mindset, and take purposeful action. And it's not only for competitive riders. Whether you're riding for joy, growth, or performance, goals provide direction, build confidence, and make every ride more meaningful. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Jenny Susser, a sports psychologist with a PhD in clinical health psychology and Olympic-level expertise. She's worked with athletes at 4 Olympic Games, served as the team sports psychologist for the 2012 U.S. Olympic dressage team, and is a certified mental performance consultant at the highest level. Dr. Jenny helps riders and athletes overcome fear, build confidence, and unlock their potential. In this episode, she's sharing actionable strategies to help you set meaningful goals, master your mindset, and find purpose in every ride. Your best year starts now.
Dear Horse World, it's Dr. Jenny Susser.
Dr. Jenny Susser, welcome to the Dear Horse World podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on this podcast to talk about some really relevant things that we're all thinking about because it's the new year. And this is around the time that people write down or talk about or think a lot about their New Year's resolutions.
Mostly think about.
Right. What do you mean by that?
I hate New Year's resolutions. I wish they didn't happen. I wish it wasn't like a big thing. The weird thing about this time of year is with the change of one year to the next year, people often get very reflective. Like it's a sort of naturally self-reflective time. I don't know if it has to do with the solstice or the change or who knows, but it is a reflective time. Like I notice it for me. I don't know if you notice it for yourself, but
Absolutely.
Then we have this, I don't even know the origin of resolutions, but it's something that we do culturally. And I think it's pretty much around the globe.
Yeah.
For sure here, it's like a big deal.
Yeah.
And, you know, all the gyms and fitness centers of the world really love that because people buy memberships like crazy. And gyms are really busy in January. And then by the middle of February, it all peters out because people lose their steam. And so goal setting is a great thing to talk about at the beginning of the year, especially if you can do it with some structure and support and intention.
Okay, so let's like break that down because for me, so let's say, you know, I'm going to write down my goals for this year and I'm just going to write them in list form like I've always done. Is that what I should do?
It's one way. Okay. Has it worked for you in the past?
I'm not much of a New Year's resolution person, actually.
Yeah.
I always have goals, but I've never applied much structure to them. And I wonder whether that like holds me back from doing more or maybe doing it more like intentionally.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that I think about goals. And to me, I was trying to think of a good, I don't know if it's an analogy or a metaphor. It's probably an analogy with this for the horse world that would make sense. So I thought about like, let's think about goals like a saddle.
Okay.
So stay with me on this.
Okay.
It's good. I will mix my metaphors and I will use lots of them and we will go all over the place, but hopefully it will help people. I love imaging.
Yeah.
And I love trying to tie things together. And also giving something else to think about that makes sense. Yeah. So for most horse people, regardless of discipline, a saddle makes sense.
Totally.
Okay. So if we think about goal setting like a saddle and we all use it, we all use it differently.
Yeah.
Okay. And we all have different types of saddles. If you're an eventer, you have way too many saddles.
Yeah.
Right? For the different goals that you have. So you'll apply a different saddle. But if you and I use the same saddle on every single horse, right? That was a good
Yeah.
It'd be very difficult, and it would
Yeah.
lose its impact or maybe its effect.
And it would hold both the horse and the rider back.
Exactly. Right.
Great analogy.
So, thank you. So to think about it from that perspective, so I did want to just give a shout out to anyone who's listening to this, especially trainers, is that this is like a saddle. It's very personal. You're going to use it how you use it. You and I won't use a saddle the same way, even on the same horse, because we have the same stirrup adjustment?
Yeah.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
Will we have the same balance? Unlikely.
Right.
So there's all these different things. So as you're listening to this out there, dear horse world, think about this, especially if you're a trainer, think about this for yourself first. Get good at this first for you, and then you can help your students with it. But really, goals have there's lots of different reasons in sports psychology why we set goals. And it's one of our great tools in our toolbox. But I also call it the least sexy.
Really?
Yeah. People hate setting goals. Well, that's not true. They love setting goals. But then once they're done setting the goal, then it's kind of like, I'm done. I set my goal and then they just never go back to it.
Okay, so why? So psychologically, why do we do that? That's
a great question. And if I knew the answer, I could keep people more engaged with their goals as we went. But it's really, I think it has to do with success and failure. Okay, so we set goals. And in our culture, and especially in our sport, in equestrian, we set goals and we think, oh, I have to accomplish them.
Yeah.
But spoiler alert, I say, this is just me, there's no research to back this, but I say if you're succeeding at half of your goals, you're setting your goals correctly.
Oh, cool. So this myth that we should fulfill our goals 100% is
crap.
Okay.
It's total hooey.
Okay, Mythbuster.
Yeah.
Mythbust number 1.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you accomplish all of your goals, then your bar is way too low.
Whoa. So is this concept of stretch goals? It's like this idea of you have a goal and you have a stretch goal. So kind of like it's maybe a motivation piece.
Yeah. So I think if you're going to set a stretch goal, you also have to have some other goals. And this is where people get a little black or white about it.
Okay.
Right. And so like you and I talk about all the time, there's so much gray area and we really need to spend more time in that gray area.
Yes.
That's really where it lives.
Love the gray.
Gray. There we go. And because we don't, then we don't have a good relationship to goal setting, because if we're not setting enough or we're not following them or any of that, then we don't feel that sense of success around them. I can't remember who coined the big hairy goal term.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like I don't even remember where that came from, but that's been around for about a decade. And if you're going to set a big hairy goal, fine, but you also need to have like a smaller shaved goal, right? Sorry about
These
that.
analogies are
Couldn't
great.
resist. Because if you only have one and it's just outlandish, then...
Yeah, like I can just imagine the psychology of that.
Yeah.
It's going to be 1, it's going to be intimidating. 2, I might avoid it. 3, like there's no way to measure how am I actually even doing down my actions to get to that big hairy goal.
Yeah. I set a big hairy goal in 1984 to make the 1988 Olympic team. Okay.
Very cool.
I was 17 or something like that and had no idea, and sports psychology was like barely even a thing then. But it was like, kind of like what Olympic sport athletes do, right? So if you're a swimmer, so I swam.
Yeah, so you were so your goal was, I want to go to the Olympics for swimming for Team USA.
Correct.
Okay. In case anyone did get
that. Yes, that was it. Okay. And when you set a goal like that, the thing that people often forget is all the steps that come in between that.
Right.
Okay. So if that had been the only thing that I had thought about, then I would have looked at my swimming career as a complete failure because I didn't make the Olympic team. Right. But luckily enough, I had lots of goals on the way there.
Like mini goals.
Yeah, steps.
Like stepping stones.
Yeah, stepping stones. And we'll go over this with the little sheet, the worksheet that I brought for you, which is to set goals up like a staircase.
We're going to do like we're going to do my 2025 goals in real time,
You almost
guys.
said resolution.
I know, I almost said resolutions. I don't even know what that means, these resolutions.
You resolve
right
to accomplish something. Pretty much. So, all right. So where were we? So I set this big, hairy goal of making the Olympic team. And I will tell you, as a young person and going from like age 18 to 22, from 84 to 88, or 17 to 21, whatever. Now you can do the math on how old I am.
Don't ask me to do math in real time, please. For a long time, because I didn't make the Olympic team, I look back on my swimming career as a failure. Oh, really?
I did. It was interesting because when I was in graduate school, I had a couple of really dear friends. And for the first, 2 years that I knew them, they didn't even know I was a swimmer.
Oh.
And when they found out I was a swimmer, they were like, they sat me down and, like I had like all kinds of fingers in my face going, how dare you bury that part of you? And I was like, but I didn't make the Olympic team. And they're like, but what else did you do? And it was really cool because they really helped me see, okay, so on my way to trying to make the Olympic team, I had so many successes in swimming, right? I can
only imagine.
I was a 4-year All-American at UCLA.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to swim at UCLA. I mean, come on.
That's some people's big, hairy goals.
Could be.
Right?
Yeah, for
sure. To be a 4-year all-time All-American.
All-American. Canadian. All-American.
Sorry.
I got to NC2As every year. I scored every year. I got to swim with amazing people. Like the people that I swam with, that's like being in the trenches. My teammates were amazing. Being part of a team like that. We were a top 10 program all 4 years that I swam, which was awesome and amazing. I made 2 national teams. I got to travel the world.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like I had so many amazing experiences while not making the Olympic team, And then afterwards, after I finished my swimming career, then I became an LA County lifeguard. Yes, I was the real Baywatch. And then I did surf racing, right? There's all this lifeguard surf racing. And so I got to, again, travel and compete from my swimming career. So it was really interesting that reflective piece for me was such a big learning moment when my friends were like, how dare you not share that with people? How dare you not look back on that with some type of pride or value?
Do you think in society, and especially like in the horse world, and we'll get into your work in the horse world like very soon, but do you think we have the right context or the right culture around aggressively pursuing something and not achieving it? Because we either talk about things as a success or as a failure.
Yeah, black or white.
Do you think that actually serves us?
It's probably a yes and no answer is probably what it is. I think that it'll depend on the person. Right. And so for me, my learning curve was like if I had understood that the steps to the goal, to the big hairy goal, were just as important as the big hairy goal, I probably would have enjoyed myself a little bit more. Now, I enjoyed myself. I had a great time at UCLA. I absolutely loved it. I'm still a Bruin through and through.
So it's this idea that the journey is as important as the destination, and we hear it a lot.
We hear it a lot.
It's kind of hard to embrace it sometimes.
Super hard. So one of the other interesting things with like the big hairy goal, and as a sports psychologist, it happens all the time, And it happens, like I said, in the Olympic sports, whenever I'm working, not whenever, but many times working with someone who plays an Olympic sport, they'll say, I want to make the Olympic team. Right. And so to me, there's a difference between when that statement changes from being a dream to a goal.
Yeah, like when it feels like it's within your grasp.
Yeah. And I had a great conversation with Sinead Halpin Maynard one time. And it was actually on a podcast, and we were talking about that. And I said to her, when exactly did your dream of making the Olympic team turn into an actual goal? And she knew the moment.
Oh, cool.
When it happened. And it was really cool. And it's a very interesting thing to go from something being a dream to a goal. And often I look back on my career, my swimming career, and I'm like, was it a dream? Like, because it was so unrealistic when I said it, you know, that it was for sure a dream. And I did make it to Olympic trials, which a lot of people don't even make it to Olympic trials. So
that's impressive.
I made it to Olympic trials. But it's, you know, I think trying to figure out how to put things into context so that it serves you. Right? Sometimes dreams are just necessary.
Right.
Like they really serve you, you know, like I have a wonderful horse. I have an amazing unicorn horse, Majestic. He's awesome. And I dream all the time about riding FEI, you know, Prix St. George or God forbid Grand Prix on him. And for me, it is firmly nestled in the dream category.
Right.
Because I don't have the commitment to turn it into a goal. And so whenever I think about it, or I listen to music where I'm like, that'd be great for him for a freestyle, I just sit back and dream about it.
And so what you're saying, it sounds like you're saying that these are that dream state, that place where we indulge in these like big, beautiful visions we have for our lives. This is one, it feels like almost like a part of one being human.
Super healthy too.
And super healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Right? And you don't have to share that with anyone. I've actually never even shared that. Now here I'm sharing it with the whole horse world. But it's, you know, like it is like it makes me happy. It's a wonderful vision. It, you know, when I go talk to him or ride him and see how far we are from that. It's okay. Yeah. It makes it okay because it's not a goal. There's no pressure on it. And it's just really lovely. It's a lovely thought.
It kind of reminds me of also like, and okay, so how does this play into vision boarding? Because when I think of sometimes like, I'm so like full share, I'm a huge Pinterest fan. And if someone were to go on my Pinterest page, they'd see all these boards. And then there's also a ton of boards that they wouldn't see. Yeah. I have tons of vision boards. Yeah. And they are about all sorts of different aspects of my life.
Yes.
And actually, when you asked me what my goals were while I'm here in Florida, I was like, I don't write my goals down, but I realized that I actually visually put out my goals or aspirations. I'll put them in I mean, I'm a very visual person. Yeah. I'll put them in photo form in like a in a Pinterest board. Yeah. So how does that play into it? Because I'd love to understand this space, this psychology, because it's really interesting. Pinterest builds it's like a whole business on how people are vision boarding and goal setting and making like an inspiration for their house or whatever. So this is clearly this is a mindset we dive into a lot as humans.
Sure. So to me, it sounds like you prefer to create your goals in a more visual, photographic setting, whereas some people prefer to write it down.
Right.
And that's just a difference. Like I don't have that type of vision like you do. For me, give me a piece of paper and a pen, or actually I say, if you're going to write down your goals, write them in pencil. Because they need to change. We'll get to that.
Oh, cool.
But so it's just a different medium, whatever works for you and your brain. Okay. There's an exercise that I learned from one of my mentors called best self vision. And for some people, when I was teaching this, I taught this a lot in the corporate world. And I'd be like, and I'd walk around the room and people would be like, stuck, like you could see them there and their pen's not moving. And I'd go, do you want to draw a picture instead? And they'd be like, oh my God, I can? Really? I can draw pictures? And, then you'd get these wild stick figures or somebody who could really draw or whatever. So it's really, to me, vision boarding is, does that resonate with you? Is that something you can connect to? It feeds back into our ability for visualization, mental imagery, mental rehearsal. Some people can really see images clearly. I can't remember the name of the affliction, but there is a type of brain that can't see imaging. Like I could say, close your eyes and imagine putting your hand in a bowl of spaghetti.
That's like without even closing my eyes.
Right. Some people can't do it at all.
Oh, fascinating.
Right? It's a small percentage of people, but as a sports psychologist, I've encountered them every once in a while. So I got to have a workaround for that because it's really not about the visual image for them. It's different for everybody. And so this is where nothing is a one size fits all. It's like the saddle. It's not a one size fits all. You got to figure out, like, how do you take whatever it is you're trying to use, whatever tool you're trying to use, whatever outcome you're trying to produce, and how do you adjust your skills or acquire the skills you need and adjust those to you.
Yeah, it makes me think, like, as you're talking, I'm going, yeah, we need to help people as a learning platform, as a digital media platform. It's like everyone should know how they learn best.
Yeah.
How do they set goals in the best way?
Yeah.
What's their relationship with fear? What's their relationship with pressure?
Yeah.
Like all these things are like tools in our toolbox, even just to go forth and pursue.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, if I have a hammer and you have a hammer, we're not going to swing it the same way.
Right.
So it's hard though, because there's not enough information out there.
And some of that information is misinformation.
True story.
That I know that you and I have talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of information out there that is very confidently delivered.
Yeah.
And we as a species, we resonate to confidence. So we go, oh, surely that person knows what they're talking about.
The thing about having so much information at our fingertips, we read something and then we think we can then communicate it.
Or that it's true.
Or that, oh God, yeah. Or that it's true. And it's really difficult, as someone who, like, I pride myself on my relationship to science and understanding and knowledge and learning, and anything that comes across my feed, my desk, my mind, I'm always looking for, okay, where's the something behind that creates, okay, this is something I can stand on. What's the foundation of that? What's the understanding of it? What's the, like I knew we were going to talk about goal setting today. Yeah. And so I spent the last 24 hours looking in the recent goal setting research.
Cool. Okay. And what did you find?
So many things. But where I'd like to go first is to really talk, like, contextualize goal setting.
Okay, let's do that.
As a sports psychology intervention or skill.
Ooh, that's a great sentence.
I know, right? But I think about it like a wheel. Okay, so if you remember an old bicycle wheel, for those of us who are old enough to remember bicycle wheels with spokes.
Ooh.
I think about pressure.
Yep.
As the hub.
Oh.
Okay, so you have the hub of the wheel, and then the spokes go off of it, and then you have the rim, and then you have the tire.
Cool.
Okay, so stay with me on this. So I think about pressure as the hub. Okay, and if performance is the tire, there's all these things that have to impact from this pressure outwards in order to create that performance.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the saying where the rubber meets the road?
Yes.
Okay. Actually used to do corporate trainings for BMW, and I learned where that saying came from. So if you think about a tire, a tire's circumference, guess what percentage of the tire actually touches the road?
I know, like 33%.
Not even that much.
Really?
Right. It's like closer to 10 depending on speed.
Whoa.
Right. So where the rubber meets the road is really critical. But it's not the whole tire. It's not the whole story.
Whoa. That makes the whole saying
Totally different.
Different.
Yes. So we throw around these sayings, but I am like fascinated by words and sayings and where they came from. And so when I was working with some of the race car drivers that taught us how to deliver these trainings at BMW, that's what they taught me. You know, it's this piece that hits the road, but it doesn't tell the whole story about the car, the brakes, how much air is in the tire, you know, the suspension, the axle, oh my gosh, there's so much to it.
Right.
So if pressure is the middle of the hub, the spokes to me are our sports psychology interventions, our skills, our tools.
Which we can foster.
100%.
And build.
So
cool.
So short story. After Olympic trials in 1988, when I did not make the team, I had 6 weeks, you know, because they were earlier in the season than nationals usually are. I had 6 weeks before going back to school. And I went home to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from. Go Steelers. And my dad's best friend, my uncle buddy, all my life, ran Pittsburgh Pro Bikes. He was really into road cycling, and his son was a national champ and all this stuff. And so my uncle buddy was like, well, you got 6 weeks. Why don't you come ride with us? And so I did. And besides having a sore butt the whole time, I really learned a lot. I never found a comfortable saddle ever. One of my favorite events or experiences with Uncle Buddy was he was teaching me about bike maintenance. And so he had his bike shop, and we went into the shop and the bike was hanging, and he spun the wheel. So he stood like nose to tire.
Yes.
So he was looking at the wheel and he spun it, and he said, "This wheel is not true."
Yes.
I've
like, heard that before.
And I was like, what? And he said, let's true the wheel.
Yeah.
And so he had this tiny little wrench. And if you remember the spokes, when they go into the rim
of the
wheel, right where the tire attaches on the other side, right? If you go into the rim, there's this tiny little bolt that you can either tighten or loosen, which will adjust the spoke, the tension of the spoke, which will then true the wheel. But it wasn't just one.
Oh, there's so many. In a
right.
wheel.
I can't even remember how many there are, but he would adjust one, and then he'd have to adjust another.
Yeah, and you have to spin it, and then you have to adjust. And
Exactly. So truing the wheel to me became something very important. And that to me, metaphorically, is really critical. And so if you think about...
my brain is exploding right now.
Right now? Okay, so goal setting is a spoke.
One spoke.
Whoa. You adjust your goals, you have to adjust everything else. You adjust something else, you have to adjust your goals, which is why I say write them in pen. Soul. Goal setting has there's a lot of different elements to it. The most famous, when you hear goal setting or goal setting methodology or methods, what does something come up?
Because of you, I think SMART.
Right.
Or from a business point of view, you use KPIs. Which are key performance indicators, which I think is a similar
pretty
approach.
Close. Yeah, I would say. So SMART goal setting is the most famous. And it was like the early 80s, and it was from the business world, and they were trying to figure out, okay, like how do we get companies in line and create some system for goal setting before KPI became a thing. Right. So SMART goal setting, and one of the research articles that I came across was someone really not discounting, but criticizing or kind of looking critically at SMART goals and saying, are they really valuable? Is it really the way to do things by doing SMART goals? And as I was reading this article, and then I listened to a little bit of the podcast about it, and I was thinking, okay, that's really looking at SMART goal setting one-dimensionally. So to me, it's like, it would be like looking at a saddle and saying, only use this saddle, only use SMART goals this way.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So I still, even after reading the article and thinking about it quite a bit, I still am a fan of SMART goal setting because it's a really good structure. However, I don't do SMART in isolation. I add pieces to it.
What does SMART stand for?
So there's a couple different variations of what it's an acronym, stand for. But mine, and I add an S to the end.
SMARTS.
So it's SMARTS, So mine is specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic but challenging, time-sensitive, and support.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
I like the addition.
Yes. With smarts, the way that you want to use it is to think about this is how you design, create, write, draw, or photo image your goals. So specific. Good goals, this is, I read this somewhere, I can't remember where, but I love it and I've used it for, 30 years. Good goals are like good driving directions. They need to be specific. Hey, Noëlle, I live in Ocala. Come visit. Can you find me?
Right. Okay.
No, you can't. Not specific enough.
Okay.
I want to be a better rider.
Yeah, not specific enough.
Not specific enough. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm a dressage person. We're going to take a dressage example for this. Good goals are like good driving directions. They need to be specific.
Okay.
I want to qualify for the regional championships at 3rd level in 2025.
Cool.
Perfect goal. That is a perfect goal.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to go through it. Specific. Is it specific?
Yes.
Absolutely. You know exactly what you're going after. The M stands for measurable. Measurable is really critical. So I want to qualify for the regional championships at 3rd level in 2025.
Cool.
Can I measure that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because you either make it or you don't. Okay.
I want to be a better rider.
Yeah.
How do you
that's
measure
so
that?
objective.
Yeah. Can't measure that.
Okay.
Okay. A stands for action oriented.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So when you set a goal that is both specific and measurable, you should have like this immediate list of actions to take. Exactly.
Cool.
So I'm old enough to have watched Happy Days. And if you're listening to this and you remember Fonzie, Fonzie was famous for having like 1 million girlfriends, right? Like it would be so terrible now. Like Gen Z would watch Happy Days and be appalled.
He would be canceled.
He would be totally canceled, but he'd open up his wallet and like the accordion of all these pictures, like all these girls, he'd go, here's my girlfriends. And that's what I always think about.
It's a great visual.
Right? When I think about action-oriented, you make a great goal and your list of actions to take should emerge immediately. And you should know what most of them are. And again, pen, soul.
Okay.
So some you will know and some you will add. I need to have a horse that can ride 3rd level.
Yeah.
I need to know 3rd level. I need a trainer. I need to qualify. I need to get 60 whatever % at 2 shows. I need to have a trailer, right? Actions, actions, actions.
There's lots.
Actions.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the action oriented. I want to be a better rider. Tell me what actions I take to do that.
So many.
Right.
And so many different ones according to different people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's the action oriented. R stands for realistic but challenging.
Okay.
Okay. This is where the motivation lives in the goal. And this is where we go from big, hairy goal to, what did I say? Little shaved goal or whatever I said. This is where motivation lives. Okay. So there's this sort of like this dance between realistic and challenging.
Yeah.
And if you are setting enough goals, you're going to have some that are overly realistic and some that are overly challenging. And when you have a little bit of a blend, that's okay. So,
yeah, because if you set goals that are like super attainable, I feel like personally for me, I wouldn't find that very motivating. I'd be like, okay, cool. Like I basically got that one in the bag.
Yeah, I call this the get out of bed factor. Right? So if it's realistic, if it's overly realistic, so the joke I used to make was, I want to ride the Grand Prix on my donkey paint mix.
Right.
Okay. So not realistic.
Right.
Okay. Is that going to get me out of bed when it's cold or wet or raining? Absolutely not.
Which so many of our listeners and viewers right now are
dealing with cold and wet and raining or snowing or whatever.
Yeah, they're like,
right.
That motivation factor is crucial.
Yeah, really big, right? So there's that. Or I have a Grand Prix horse I'd like to win 1st level at regional championships. Right. Again, not very challenging. I'm not going to bother to get out of bed because who cares?
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So there's this dance.
Hmm.
I say you want a goal to be challenging enough that you're not quite sure you can do it, but realistic enough that somewhere in there, you think you can.
Hmm. Do you have any advice to how people find that? If they are someone who has traditionally been like, okay, my goal for 2025 is to be a better rider.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're talking about transitioning to a much more specific process. What's some advice you could give them about how to find that balance between realistic and challenging?
You know, the first thing that pops into my head is make it about you. Not about your trainer, not about all the pressure at the barn, because I know barn groups.
Oof,
Yeah. I
it's a
mean,
doozy.
barn people can be like really great and really supportive, or they can be really terrible. And a lot of times people will design their idea for themselves around what everybody else is doing.
Or what everyone else thinks they should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't always have to design a goal that, how do I say this, that really is the extent of your potential. So for instance, after I retired from swimming at UCLA, I swam masters. So masters swimming is a big deal in the United States. It's really cool. It's huge. There's masters nationals, there's master world champions and stuff like that. And so I coached master swimming to make money, and I swam on the team. And I was just off of my swimming career at UCLA, so I was still pretty fast, right? And everybody would be like, you have to race. You have to go to this swim meet. I'd be like, no, I actually don't, because that's not my goal anymore. So you don't always have to set a goal that is at the full height of your potential.
That's a really important message for a lot of people to hear, me included, because, and I know a lot of our members on NF Plus and a lot of our community in the digital space, you know, they're new moms, for example.
Yeah.
So they're like, my riding goals have now gotten bumped down underneath my child's needs, my family's needs, my own needs, right? So it's hard to navigate setting a really big, hairy goal when you're a new mom or you're the mom of 2 or 3 kids.
100%. You know, like, listen, with the quality of horse I have, right? Like if I wanted to show, but see, my thing is like, I'm so competitive. I would have to win everything. Not regionals, nationals. I'd have to win everything. But I don't have a commitment to that type of competitiveness or pressure or time to put into my riding anymore. Right. So my goals are way below my potential. Air
and that's
quotes.
Okay.
And it's totally fine. It took me a long time to accept that, but it's totally okay with me now.
How do we find that self-compassion? Because I'm also a really competitive person, and I can tell that I battle with that of like wanting to just to set really, I would say like really intentional goals, really with my horses, but also recognize that I have a business to run, and we're also on like a year-long journey across the United States.
Right.
So there's like, so it's like, what's some advice about how we find that self-compassion, that we are setting goals that are not even maybe close to our full potential, but that we can still find motivation and joy in those goals?
So sacrifice. Sacrifice and compromise are 2 pretty big words. You know, a lot of times when people ask me about sports psychology and, you know, I just wasn't born with the ability to handle pressure. And we kind of look at people and we think, oh, you know, that person, like, man, they really handle pressure really well. They were born for this or made for this or whatever. But in 30 years of experience of doing this, even people who seemingly deal with pressure really well, they're always compromising somewhere and sacrificing something.
Well, yeah.
And so for me, I'm looking at, when I think about setting goals now, being 57, there we go, I did the math for you. I think about what am I going to have to compromise and what am I going to have to sacrifice in order to get there? And is that worth it?
Oh, that's a cool introspection exercise.
So that would be my answer to that would be, you got to think, because there's always a cost. Now, there's always a benefit.
But there's always a cost.
But there's always a cost. And I think we're so focused on the benefit that we forget about what it costs and what it costs our horses and what it costs our other relationships. When we get to the last S in smarts, that's really where that comes in.
What does T stand for?
Time sensitive.
Ooh, cool.
I'd like to be a better rider someday.
Right. There's no motivation.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd like to qualify for third level someday. So the T is the accountability piece, right? So the realistically challenging is the motivation, and then the T is the accountability. So you set a time date on it in pencil, because stuff happens. Your horse goes lame, you go lame, you go broke.
Yeah, all of which happens
Your
regularly
trainer,
in the horse world.
You divorce your trainer, whatever.
Yeah.
There's all these different things that happen, right? And so the T is really time sensitive, and that creates that accountability factor. Otherwise, you're not putting yourself all the way into it. And if you're not putting yourself all the way into it, then why are you bothering? Or you're only going to get halfway there.
Yeah.
And it's not going to feel fulfilling on any level.
It also makes me think, as we're going through this, my brain's kind of going like a million miles an hour, because I'm like, there are so many ways in which we can do this in community that I think would be, one, hold people accountable in a way that I know I need it. Like just that sense of making goals, smart goals in community or in support feels like vital, actually.
Could be awesome. Like when I work with sport teams, like that's the greatest part. Is like, what's our team goal? And how are we all contributing to that? So that comes to the S, support, right? And so who's on your team and who's in your corner? And more importantly, who's not? Okay, so as a rider, we have lots of different pieces of our team that sometimes we think about and sometimes we don't. Number one, is your horse aligned with your goal? My donkey paint mix is really probably not going to want to do the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be good for him or her.
Right.
Even if it'd be great for me.
Right.
Okay. And so that's the first thing.
And I feel like we often know quite well. Without saying it out loud, I think we internally know.
Maybe.
You think so?
I disagree.
Okay.
Right? I think a lot of people, and I don't know, I mean, over the years, I saw a lot of people set really inappropriate goals for their horses. This horse is bred as a jumper. He's going to jump the meter 30. Well, he hates it. Or he can't see. Like Meta had a great horse who was actually a Secretariat offspring. This is years and years and years ago. Right. And so.
And to give some background, we're talking about Meta Larson, who is one of our masterclass instructors.
Exactly. And my partner.
Yes.
And his name was Steady. He was a great horse. He was like 17-1 chestnut, looked like Secretariat, but just bigger. He actually looked like a warm blood. And so he failed on the track. And then they were like, okay, well, a lot of Secretariat offspring jumped.
Cool.
Really successfully. So let's throw him into the jumpers, right? He's totally sucked. Couldn't do it. Hated it. And I can't remember how Meta wound up with him, but he ended up being a pre-St. George dressage horse, and he was gorgeous. Like he was like, this is like 19, and and turned out he had a visual issue, a perception issue, and so jumping was really challenging for him. Right? So that goal was no good for him.
When I was in my teens and 20s, fear and anxiety felt like an invisible weight. Horses were my sanctuary, a place where the world felt safe. But the moment I stepped into the competition ring, that safety vanished. The pressure, the self-doubt, the overwhelming fear, it was suffocating. If fear has ever stolen the joy of riding or held you back in the arena, During rides or even in daily life, you are not alone. Fear doesn't have to be in charge. There is a way through it. Dr. Jenny Susser, a world-renowned sports psychologist and equestrian expert, knows how to tackle fear head-on. In her Gaining Control of Fear and Anxiety masterclass, she shares Olympic-level strategies to help you break free from self-doubt, build confidence, and create lasting habits. This course isn't about overcoming fear. It's about understanding it, controlling it, and turning it into a quiet passenger instead of the driver. Through 13 transformative lessons, Dr. Jenny explores the science of fear, practical tools to manage it, and ways to tackle common fears like competition nerves, jumping big fences, or getting back in the saddle after a bad experience. Take the first step towards becoming the rider and the person you are meant to be. Stream Dr. Jenny's masterclass now on NF Plus and gain lifelong skills for the saddle, for work, and everywhere in between.
As you're thinking about your goal, think about your horse. Is there alignment? So like the support is really who's on your support and who's aligned. I've worked with plenty of people who are like, this is my goal, but my trainer doesn't think I can do it. And I'm like, oh, what? Is that because your goal is way too big and hairy and unrealistic, or because your trainer is stopped by something and that has nothing to do with you?
Yeah.
Right. So there's all these different variables in that.
Yeah, because there's a factor of trainers feeling able to actually help you.
Yeah, can I get you there?
Can I get you there? And I think that's a really difficult introspection for a lot of trainers is, am I actually holding this person back? Can I not actually help them get there? And therefore, should I dispel? And I'm saying that all that probably happens subconsciously, but like, I think that does happen in the horse world.
I think it happens a lot. And who knows why? I can't speak for trainers, and we could do a whole thing on the plight of the trainer. I
think we might have to.
I have so much compassion for trainers. I think the trainers are just really put in unfair positions over and over and over again, especially when I started working. Well, I used to clinic a lot. I used to go and do 2-day clinics, and I would work with trainers, and I would just look and see how much the trainer is required to what I call swim out of their own lane.
Yes. With
regards to, like, trainers shouldn't, like, yeah, okay, fine, you can help your clients set goals and stuff like that, but it's not your area. Yeah. Your area is to either train the horse better or train the rider better.
Yeah.
But then they get
looped into
everything.
Things.
I'm scared. I'm unconfident. I'm this. I'm that. I'm the other. I'm overly confident. Right.
Dear Horse, where we just recently did a Hacks for Horse People episode with Dewey Freeman and Josh Nichols talking about this.
Yeah.
About how trainers get pulled into the psychology of people's lives
all the time.
It's really hard. And Josh speaks really clearly about, you feel like you're swimming outside your lane. It's a challenge. And these people clearly have a need, but you're like, I can't meet that need.
I can't meet that need. Yeah, it's really tough. Really tough. So you're looking for, the S support part is you're really looking for alignment. Okay. And so you have your horse. Those are the two most important, and your trainer. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then who do you live with? A lot of people don't think about this. There's a lot of, husband-wife teams where
horse husband is a big category
that I don't even touch. But again, do they support you? And is there something going on in that area of support or not? Okay. Vet, farrier, dentist, and then whatever else you do for your horse. Do you do body work? Do you,
nutrition,
saddle fitter, bit fitter,
yeah,
all these different things that go into making you and your horse, I can't even think of the right word, like
optimal
for that goal. So that's your support. And it's also dynamic because some people on your support team are going to come and go.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to a point where you're like, okay, I don't think you're supportive anymore. Now, If it's your spouse, just create a powerful way to talk about it. Okay? Because that shouldn't be a deal breaker either way. It shouldn't be a deal breaker for your goal, and it shouldn't be a deal breaker for your relationship, right? Like in any relationship, you can't be all things to all people.
If you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one.
Ooh, boom, right? So figure out a way if your spouse is not on board, find out why or why not, and see if there's something else you can do, some other area. But that's a whole other podcast too. But so support's really critical. So that's our smarts. And the way that I look at smarts is structural. Okay. So SMART goals, how you set your SMART goals are going to be different from how everybody else, right? It's not a one size fits all. It's a scaffolding, right? If you look at a building, like the scaffolding sits aside it to help you build the building. Yes. It's not the building. It's what you stand on to build the building. Yes. Okay. So that's like really the world of SMART goals. Smarts. So
I love it.
Questions, comments?
I have so many questions. I was like immediately thinking how this applies to me. It's like such an amazing framework to think about how to, and also for how motivating it is. Because I'm thinking, and I wanted to ask you this, like, so what's the difference? And maybe you can answer this about the chemicals in our body, but like, how does reaching a goal impact you mentally? Like you're like, because psychologically that I've thought of moments where I've reached a goal, or I've even achieved a reach goal or a stretch goal, and it's like such a high.
Yeah, for like a moment.
Right.
So to me, like I think about goals are the create a gap. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to say this for people who aren't watching this. Yeah. Okay, so if you're on one side of a chasm and your goal is on the other, the processing is you build this bridge to close the gap. And then what happens as soon as you close one gap?
Another one.
The next one appears because you have to close that one gap in order for the next gap to become visible. You can't see the next thing until you've gotten to that next space. So I remember when I was swimming and I would have a goal. It was all about time. Right?
Yeah.
It was
with swimming. Yeah.
With swimming, time. It was all about time. Winning, it was kind of like in there, but a lot of it was about time. Like during the season, it was about time. Can you qualify for nationals? Can you qualify for NC2As? Can you qualify for Olympic trials? And then do you qualify for the finals? All those, it was all about time. And then when you're in the finals, it's about winning. So I remember going my best time every single time. Every single time I went my best time, my lifetime best time. I'd hit the wall. I'd look up at the clock and I'd go, yes. But
really,
it's always like immediate. Could have done this better. Could have done that better. Could have gone faster here. Could shave another couple of hundreds off here. So the psychology behind goal setting, there's probably a dopaminergic response, right? There's adrenaline. There's good cortisol. There's all the chemically, it's probably pretty easy to think about, but it's really what it means to you. Okay. To me, psychologically. Aside from the chemical piece, what do these goals mean to you? What does accomplishing that mean? How hard was it for you to get there? Like, even if it wasn't a super big, hairy goal, but you had just like obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. Like sometimes you just have those seasons where it's just like, are you kidding me? With the things that got tossed in the way, and you persevered and you got there. Or you cut bait and you got out at the right time without sacrificing your health or your horse's health.
Yeah, that's like a slam dunk. If you can achieve your goal without compromising your health and your horse's health, and all things are sound and
that's
huge.
That's the brass ring, but that's the exception. That's not the rule. Usually there's stuff that's going to come up. Things are going to come up, obstacles.
Right.
Who says the obstacle is the way?
Right.
Right. There's a book.
I'm curious because you work with a lot of top athletes, a lot of Olympic riders. how do you navigate that place when they achieve their goal? So they, like, their big thing has been for years that they're trying to get to the Olympics, and then they get to the Olympics. And how do you, because and this must be so interesting because you have experienced this where you achieve your goal or you don't achieve your goal. And then it's that part afterwards.
I call it the hangover.
Okay.
And it's so tricky as a sports psychologist to deal with this, right? Because I've dealt with equestrian Olympians and other sport Olympians. And then I also dealt with it myself as an athlete.
Right.
And after your big season ending event, whatever it is, whether it's nationals, NCAA championships, regional championships, Olympics, there is always a letdown, right? So you have all of this energetic resourcing that you have to do to get to that big meet. You have, like all of your energy, like all of your focus, all of your resources, everything is going towards that. And then it ends. And then it's like falling off of a cliff. Really. And so a lot of the athletes have been really public about it. Michael Phelps has probably been the most public about what happened to him following his first Olympics when there weren't, lights and cameras on him.
Wow.
Then what? And so there's this hangover period where you have to just kind of be quiet and recover. Let your system recover. You have to put energy back in your tank. You have to go find that old baseline that, like, we raise our energetic baseline to where we need it to be. Like when you're at the Olympics, your baseline's up here energetically, whereas if you're home training and it's whatever, it's down here. You don't need the energy. You don't need the focus. You don't need to be so hypervigilant. You don't need, it's not so much to do. There, your things that you have to cover and take care of and be mindful of every single day are less. So you spend less energy, but you go from spending all your energy and then you have no energy and you feel like you have no energy to spend, and then you don't really need to spend it anywhere. So it's an adjustment. It's a big transition.
It's a huge pendulum swing back.
Yeah, really big. So to me, like after that event, you just have to kind of sit back and almost be like, okay, when you get a really bad cold or the flu or something like that, and you're like, all right, I got to just kind of sit here and heal and recover.
Yeah. And I think talking about the fact that whether we achieve our goals or we don't, there's going to be like a recovery period afterwards.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
It's not just okay. It's absolutely necessary. When I went at swimming, I know swimming the best, 52 people make the team. 2 people in each event. So first and second place, and that's it. And there's 8 or 10 heats of 8 people trying to make that team in any one event. How many people get third? There's a third place in every race.
Right. There's a 4th place. I always think about that rider at the Olympics or at an event that's just off
that's
the
when
podium.
You're right. That what do they call that? The copper medal.
Yeah,
that's super tough. But there's always that place, right? And then there's the people that don't make the team. There's people that do.
There's lots of versions of that. Yeah, where you almost make it, but you don't quite make it.
Yeah, there's always that version, right? Missing the cut. I remember my freshman year at UCLA when I was trying to make the standard, the cut, we called it, for NC2As. I missed it by 100th of a second. Oof. I had to go back and do it again, which I did. But, that's reality, man. Right? So there's always that recovery piece. And to me, the recovery piece is like a looking backward and like a completion, kind of a review, having a reflective period. And I think you kind of have to do that before you can then say, okay, what's next?
Right.
You can begin to, any competitive athlete is going to go right into what's next. However, at some point you got to go back and go, okay, you got to make that old bed.
You got to do an audit. You got to do a
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. That feels important. It feels also like something that many of us skip.
Yeah. Because it sucks.
Yeah, it
It
does
really
suck.
sucks.
Does suck.
It sucks. It's the sucky part.
But I think it does set you up for success to go forward.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Because there's always learning, you know, like every time I hit the wall, I immediately knew what I could have done better during that race. And then you try and do it better the next time. That's the game. That's why being competitive is so fun.
When I think back on my own competitive career, I think if we don't do that introspection and we don't do that audit, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I know that because I didn't really take that time to do that when I did or did not achieve my goals, you tend to relive them later. It's like they seep back into your thought process.
Sure.
And I feel like that might be a real big motivator so that they don't kind of haunt you.
Yeah.
Later.
And they may still haunt you. But I think
and is that okay? Like, is that for people who feel like maybe, because I feel that sometimes, like, why am I even thinking about equitation finals when I was like 18 or when I was riding professionally? Like, why do I even think about that? But I do think about it. I think about things that I've achieved or that I've not achieved. They seep back into my thought process.
Well, they're part of who you are and they're part of who you will be.
Right.
So I don't think that that's that bad. The question would be, are you torturing yourself with it? Are you beating yourself up? Are you using that as evidence to make yourself feel bad about what it is you're trying to do, or to discount the value of your future goal? Or you want to get shrinky about it? Let's get shrinky about it.
Yeah.
There's
totally.
There's a lot to that.
Well, and I think a lot of us in the horse world, I mean, I can speak for myself. I think that self-value, the self-worth piece becomes really like connected to our goals or connected to our achievements.
How could it not be?
Right.
Listen, we're human. Yeah. Okay. We're human. And so there's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Right. So internal and external. External is the medal, the reward, the photo op, the come be on my podcast, the money, right? The internal is, I got out of bed at 4:30 in the morning every morning when it was dark and it was cold and I was tired, and I dragged my ass to swim practice anyway, right? Yeah. And you got to have both. I don't think one is more powerful than the other. I think having a healthy blend of internal and external, intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, I think that's very, very healthy. Cool. Listen, we all have ego. Yeah. Let's just be honest. Yeah, totally. Standing up there going, yeah, right? Like, I mean, pounding your chest and waving to the crowd and bending over for them to put the medal around your neck. Man, come on. Mwah, chef's kiss, right?
Well, and I think what you're touching on also makes me think of a lot of riders I've talked to that say to me, I'm just a trail rider. And I'm always so distracted by the word just.
That's great. Because, yeah, for me, like, I get calls and people will say, well, I'm just an adult amateur. Would you work with someone as lowly as me? And I'm like, yeah. Right. So I learned this from Ann Gribbins, actually.
Oh, cool. Shout out to Ann.
Shout out to Ann Gribbins. I'm a huge Ann Gribbins fan. I love Ann. So it was years and years and years ago, because I was still riding Robley, my about to turn 28.
Oh, wow.
Andalusian. So this had to have been like 2008-ish. And she came to clinic and teach meta, of course. And I watched the first day of rides, and I love to watch Ann teach. I think she is masterful. That's a whole other conversation. So we go to dinner that night, and I'm sitting there and I look at her and I go, Ann, who would you rather teach? A Grand Prix rider or a training level rider? And she didn't even miss a beat, training level. And I was like, really? Like, I never would have expected that from an Olympic coach, an Olympic judge. She goes, the training level rider still wants to learn.
Oh, mic drop.
Totally. And that was formative for me as a professional, Because it's not about the level that you are riding, competing, learning, training. It is about what you bring to that. And so, are you just a trail rider? Who cares? So-and-so's just an Olympian.
Yeah.
Okay, we could say that. But it's really about what you want to invest in it and what you want to get out of it. And again, that comes back to, what are you willing to compromise and sacrifice in order to get to your goal? And is all that worth it?
Yeah.
Does the cost justify the benefit?
Mm-hmm. And I'm also thinking like goal setting and outlining SMART goals for all of the trail riders who are listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
You can do that. And I think it offers structure to something that you're like, oh, I'm just a trail rider.
Everybody has goals. Even if your goal is like to go out and see 10 birds you've never seen before while you're out on trail, who cares?
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
Does that light you up?
Yeah.
Does that make you happy? Does that give you like the inside jitteries that make you want to go and get on your horse?
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't really matter.
I think it offers what I think what's so exciting is not only does SMART goals offer you the structure to then feel like you have a plan, feel like you have like a roadmap, right?
Yes.
Because I think the horse world and all the knowledge that we have to learn and all the ways that we can improve, because you can be great in the saddle, but you can have a lot to work on the ground.
On the ground, yeah, sure.
Right? Your horse can be incredible in the arena, but have a lot of challenges outside the arena, or vice versa.
Yep.
You can have a horse that is fabulous at home, but will not get on the trailer. Like as horse people, I feel we're constantly challenged with something that we're not good at, or that we're struggling with our horses, or that we could work better at.
That is a great couple of sentences, paragraph. That's great. We're constantly challenged by things that we're not good at.
Right.
And that's beautiful, like in a way, because there's always opportunity.
For self-improvement.
And go to your S. Who's your support? You don't have to do it all. Like I'm not terrible at trail loading, just not my jam. So I go to Meta.
Right.
Do I need to be good at it?
Yeah.
Do I need to be good at everything? Not necessarily. So what we're talking about brings me to the next piece of goal setting, which is the balance between what I call hard and soft goals.
Ooh.
So in sports psychology, we call them outcome and process. Okay. But I don't like outcome and process because those are confusing words. At least they are to me. But hard and soft feel pretty easy to understand. So hard goal. I want to qualify for regional championships at third level in 2025. That's outcome based. Yeah. Okay. Soft goal for that would be, I need to become softer in my hands and more responsive to my horse's mouth.
Beautiful.
Soft.
Yeah.
So the hard goal is what you want to do. The soft goal is who do you need to be to do it.
It feels like it's where the science and the art of what we do comes together.
Yes, absolutely. I've never thought of it that way. Yeah. Boom. Yeah, absolutely.
Because science is so measurable. Art is much more subjective.
Yeah, right. So what do you want to do and who do you need to do to be it? My mentor back in my corporate days, Dr. Jim Lair, wrote this great book called The Only Way to Win. And it was all about character. And he talked about performance character and moral character. And he's like, performance character is train hard, execute, set goals, performance. And then the moral character was tell the truth, be honest, be true to yourself, operate with integrity, don't cheat, those kinds of things. And he said this really great thing. He says people can be very full of performance character, tons of performance character, no moral character.
Right.
We know those people.
Yes.
Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
If you only have moral character, we never hear about you. You got to have both. You got to have both hard goals and soft goals. If all your goals are hard and outcome based, then you are so direct line focused on the outcome that you're missing all that stuff in between. That's where it becomes very black and white. If all you have are soft goals, you're just going to sit with Foofy in the paddock all day and never accomplish anything. But if you have the balance, then you have this great relationship with your horse, yourself, your behavior, your skills on the way to making these things happen through integrity, moral compass, grit, hard work, skill development, all that.
It makes me think of the importance, and I think it's so relevant to where we're at in the horse world right now, which is, are you, and I just talked about this with Jerry Sheriff, is, are you, it's this idea of winning at all costs, you know? Are you actually, once you've achieved that goal and you've won that medal, or you've won that competition, or you've even bought that horse, but did you do it? Are you okay with the person
that you are
in order to get there?
Or who you became.
To get there.
Right? It's really hard. Listen, performance is really tough because there's tons and tons of pressure to perform at a very high level. And that's where people who don't have the right support or haven't been exposed to the right things or the right people, we're super malleable. We just are, just like our horses. You know, we can be talked into anything.
Right.
And so,
and we can, it's quite easy to be led down, like to be led down and to go down the wrong path.
100%, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah. Really, really easy. And so you're gonna make those mistakes. But the question is are you learning from them? Are you correcting your course so that you get onto a better course, and so that you're behaving in a way or operating in a way or performing in a way that helps you feel good about yourself?
The hard and soft goals feels like an amazing, like, full circle way to look at goal setting.
It's like a scale of justice, right? I really feel that when I work with athletes, no matter what sport it is, I want you to have a blend. Okay. And then sometimes you're going to get on your horse or, you know, put your foot in the stirrup, or you're going to get on the blocks or stand behind the starting line. And sometimes you're going to really need to think about that hard goal.
Yeah.
And that's going to be your focus driver. And sometimes you're going to really need to think about that soft goal, and that's going to be your focus driver.
Totally.
So I like to have a healthy blend, which leads us to our steps. So this is where the other part of goals come in, where we have long-term and short-term. And so typically I like athletes to set like one seasonal goal. So that would be the long-term goal. So if you're looking at...
We're going to make this available on the show notes.
But, right. But you also want to be thinking about it like it's a staircase. Okay? So this is why this looks like steps.
Okay.
Top of the staircase is that long-term goal. Whether it's big and hairy or not, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
That's your season-ending goal. That's your whatever. And we have variations of long-term goals. So like, for instance, if your goal is to make the Olympic team, that's going to be one staircase. And then you're going to have steps for each. You're going to have however many steps to make the Olympic team.
Yeah.
Probably for a goal of that size and that long term, each step will become its own long-term goal.
Right.
That then you will have steps for.
It's a really cool way of looking at goal setting.
So to me, this structure is very, very supportive because it helps take you out of like that overwhelm. Like, oh my God, what do I do now?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also like immobilizes a lot of us.
Yeah.
In the difficult months.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy in the summer where you're like, I'm just going to go for a trail ride, or here, look at me. I'm just going to go for a trail ride. I'm going to go for a trail ride, or I'm going to go, I'm going to go work on my walk track transitions.
Yes.
It's easy to be motivated when the sun is out, till late in the day or, whatever,
right.
And you have more time. It's really hard for a lot of us to get motivated in the wintertime when it's raining. And so you're like, why am I getting out of bed? Like, what's for what purpose? And this creates a framework. You could literally have this, you could have this on your bedside table. You could have this on your bathroom mirror, right? Where you're like, okay, why am I getting up at 5 a.m.?
I tell people to put it in their grooming kit, or I have a couple of good hacks for this. So like, I would take a seasonal goal. This is usually where I start with people to teach them for the goal setting. Would be, let's take a seasonal goal. And then that's the top step, right? And so remember, you set a good goal that's specific, measurable. All those actions come up.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at the specific, measurable, realistic, and challenging, and then the time. And then the steps become the actions and the support. Okay.
Yeah.
And so on this one, I have one top step, and then I have 4 steps on the way up to it on this worksheet.
Totally.
Okay. So I would have too hard and too soft on the way. And your big, hairy goal can be hard or soft.
Yeah.
The end of your season goal could be.
Yeah, that's okay, right? To have
100%.
Your season goal can be a soft goal.
Yes, but there are things you're going to have to do in order to be that way.
Totally.
Okay? So you can have a soft goal as your end of season goal or your big long-term goal, but you're still going to have hard goals on the way to your soft goal.
Totally.
Okay? So it doesn't really matter to me. And then there are the different ways that you can, think about how you want to do this. And so on this worksheet, there's the goal, action, plan, and target date. And then I have, what's hard, what's soft. And then over here, I can't read. So I have the SMART written out. And then I have different performance areas.
Physical, technical, regulating, physiology, training, mental, emotional.
Right.
So cool.
And those are just like a sampling of different things that you could have as the performance areas that you want to have as those steps to the goals. It depends on what you need. For most people that come to me, regulating physiology is key. Can I say a bad word? How do I get my shit together? That to me is the definition of regulating physiology.
Totally.
Okay. And so depends on what it is that you're after. The idea that we're looking at with this hub of pressure, really, the question that I always seek to answer. Actually, I don't even seek to answer it, but I always want to explore the question of, how does pressure affect you?
Okay.
And that is the meat and potatoes, or the tofu and potatoes of my work. And it should be for all sports psychologists, should. It's really where
because we're all navigating pressure. This world is a pressure cooker. Literally.
100%. So how does pressure affect you? And then what do we need to do for you to be able to perform at the level that you want? Developing the skills to tolerate, manage, navigate, and then really just jam with the pressure. I used to say falling in love with pressure.
Yeah.
And I hate that now.
Okay.
Because I have performed under such pressure and hated it.
Yeah.
So, shameless plug, I did a TED Talk, and it was the most pressure I have ever put myself under in my whole life. It was horrific. And it was so much pressure, it wrecked me. So I have an Aura ring, another not shameless plug, but it tracks your heart rate variability, which is your recovery measures and how you're responding to stress. And every single week, my heart rate variability went down and got worse and worse and worse. And it was so much pressure, and I hated it, and I hated it, and I hated it. And then I did my TED Talk, and I was like, okay, I did it.
And do you think those experiences, though, it makes me think that those experiences they adjust our thresholds of capacity?
Yeah, but they can also adjust it backwards.
Right.
I walked off the stage and I'm like, I'm never doing that again.
Oh, okay.
No. Would I? Yeah, I probably would. But that moment I was like, I'm never doing that again, because that was horrible.
The sacrifice in order to get there
cost me a lot.
Right.
And it was really built into a lot of different things. The reason why it cost me so much, and I put so much pressure on myself, and I did not love very much of that pressure, and which was unfortunate, because I really wanted to love walking on that stage and delivering that talk, and I didn't feel like I did. Right, and so
I can totally relate to that. Feeling.
And so no, I think it's a good talk.
I think it's a great talk.
And
everyone, go and watch Jenny's TED Talk. We'll
Thank
make
you.
sure the
Shameless
link's
plug.
Shameless plug. We'll put the link in the show notes.
But it was so much pressure that took me months to recover from, really. And other things that have been a lot of high pressure, like the first corporate delivery I did. So when I was working for Jim Lair, my mentor, and the first time I delivered the corporate athlete course, I mean, I didn't sleep for days. I was so nervous. And I prepared and I prepared and I prepared and I prepared. And I was so prepared. And I had rehearsed my first 10 minutes like over 100 times because I knew I would just black out. And I did. Yeah. I got up there and I was just, don't remember what I said for the first 10 minutes. My boss who managed me was in the back of the room and she's like, you nailed it. I'm like, what did I say? Because I don't remember a minute of it. Yeah. But then I was on cloud 9. I was like, this is awesome. I did it. It was great. So that reset, that was a new calibration. My TED Talk was a different one. It took me more to recover from, even though like objectively I would consider it a success. So it's not always going to be like sunshine and roses and unicorns. Yeah. So, but that's okay.
Well, and it's that balance because I know that some people feel almost, I've talked to a lot of people in the horse world who almost are like reluctant to challenge themselves at all. So their horses and their journey in riding becomes more of it's like a no-go zone for goal setting.
That's okay.
Is it?
For sure.
Oh, okay.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, what makes you happy?
Right.
And that's where your goals should live. Like, I have a horse that knows the Grand Prix, and I'm a pretty capable athlete, rider. I have access to great training, and I'm not riding the Grand Prix.
Yeah. And so it's really cool to create culture around that being okay.
100%. 100%. Like, I want you to love what you're doing. Yeah. I want you to love that feeling. I want you to love it more than you don't love it. You're not always going to get off your horse or walk away from the barn feeling that overwhelming sense of love and accomplishment. Yeah. But you should love it more than you don't. Yes. And if you're in the I don't love it more than I do love it, then we need to make some changes. You need to adjust something. You need some help to figure out, okay, what is my target in the wrong spot? What am I doing wrong? Or not necessarily wrong, but what could I be doing differently that would create a different result that would give me greater satisfaction?
Well, and I think to round out this is like to actually also the most empowering piece I always find about our pursuit in horsemanship is that we get to do this for much longer than most athletes.
Yeah.
So you could actually, I think what I love about riding the most is actually you could be more accomplished in your 50s
than in your 20s. Yeah, for sure.
But what sports can say that?
Right. So one of the things that I did read yesterday is this idea of this kind of like non-pressurized goal, these vague, non-specific goals. Yeah. And it's the I want to be a better rider. And so it's for the people who are not in love with pressure and don't want to put pressure on themselves. And they kind of do this, I wonder how good it could be today. Like, I wonder where I could get to today. I wonder how this could feel today. So the piece that I read on it was setting it like in a statement, but I love to turn it into a question. Yeah. Like, I wonder how much fun I could have today.
Cool.
I wonder how quickly I could get over each mistake I make.
Wow.
That's
such I'm thinking about this application to my own process. I'm thinking, gosh, that's powerful.
Yeah. That I really learned from Linda Pirelli. She would say, isn't that interesting? Or how interesting. Something would happen. And instead of her like slapping a label of that's a success or that's a failure, she would say, how interesting, or isn't that interesting? Which creates this huge opening for curiosity, exploration, and progress, shall I say? Because we get so like our blinders are on, really and we're so like, I got to get this done. And is that every day? Yeah. No. So I'm really big on, I love goal setting because as part of the spokes that come off that hub, goal setting, having goals drives focus.
Right.
Okay. And so whenever I'm at like a dinner party or a cocktail party or somewhere like some social event, it's almost always a male golfer who will come up to me, offense taken, and they'll say, "What's the key to sports psychology?" And I can say it in one word: the key to performance is focus.
Whoa.
However, we have literally millions of things vying for our focus
all the time.
Every second. The human eye is exposed to 11 million bits of information per second.
Wow.
Right? So our brain's job is this deciphering, like sorting through all of this mayhem to figure out what is it that we focus on. Then you put passion in, then you put purpose in, then you put goals in, then you put people watching me. What does this mean? Self-worth. You put all that stuff in there, and focus seems like, forget about whack-a-mole. I mean, whack-a-mole would be easy compared to that.
Well, it's like what I thought of as you were talking about, like focus. If you say focus is the key to performance, but then you like just layered like a million things on top of it.
Right. And so that's like my job as a sports psychologist is how do I help you manage all of these things that are competing for your focus to get you to be able to focus on execution.
The things that matter to you.
Right. Like what do you need to do in the moment? What do you need to do in the moment when your focus gets pulled away, which it's going to? Yes. How do you bring it back? Goals are awesome for that. So my ritual when I ride is when I tighten the girth, I set a goal.
Cool.
I don't care if it's to just have fun or I want to giggle 5 times or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, I want to improve my pirouette. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That when I tighten my girth, I pair it, right? Goal setting, great to pair with something that you do every single day. So I had a professional tennis player that I worked with. And they would write it on a piece of paper the night before and put it in their tennis shoe.
Cool.
So that they'd pull it out and boom, there it is.
Yeah.
Put it in your tack trunk. Put it in your grooming kit.
Put it in your paddock boot.
Put it in your paddock boot, right? In your glove, whatever. Yeah. Share it with your trainer. Get on your horse. And when you're warming up your horse, tell your trainer, here's my goal for today. Right? So that you got some support, alignment, and navigation, like somewhere to go. Like, where are you going with all of this? Yes. Gives you somewhere to go. And I don't care what it is. I want to get off my horse and feel 8 out of 10 wonderful. Gives you something to focus on so that if you're on your horse and something goes awry, which it's gonna, you got somewhere to go back to to guide you.
So powerful. I'm really excited actually for us to expand on this on NF Plus. I feel like we're going to have to do some really cool things on the platform in the new year to give everyone the tools and the support that they need, because the S part,
it's critical.
It's critical. So to round out our episode, I always ask the same rapid fire questions to everybody.
Okay.
If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
Evidence-based horsemanship. I think you and I, Stephen Peters and Martin Black, like really. So there's a lot of technical words in that book, like amygdala and hippocampus and stuff like that, which I think prevents people from really getting what it is. To me, it's a blueprint, like it's an understanding. It's a description of how your horse's brain works. I think one of the things we really are lacking in the horse world is enough science. Yeah. And I think that we're also lacking enough understanding of what goes on for our horses. I'm not technically a neuroscientist, but I have studied enough neuroscience that I consider myself very adept at neuroscience. And the similarities and differences between horses and humans is so important to understand. And I think we really fail to understand that. So there's that. Yeah. And then probably one of my all-time favorite books in the whole world is Illusions by Richard Bach.
Ooh, I've never heard of this one.
So it's called Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah.
Ooh.
And really what it's about is sort of like your personal, not power, but your personal magic.
Cool.
My mom gave me that book when I was really young. And so I read it every year. So my mom, she was so magical like that. Like she passed away 6 years ago, and every year when I read it, it's like her in my ear.
That's beautiful.
Saying you can be magical. And I think we lose that, like especially with horses because they're so challenging.
Yeah.
Like, and we forget. We get so obsessed with our goals that we forget the magic of that relationship. You know, and just walking in the barn and have your horse stick its head out of its stall and nicker at you.
I'm totally reading that book now.
Yeah.
Who is the most iconic horse in history?
So, not being a horse trainer, I don't have sort of that view, but for me, it was Secretariat because of the culture and the love of horses he seemed to create. Like he was so phenomenal, and he did what was seemingly impossible. And he did it with such brilliance and beauty, and the people around him, like the story around him, was so magical. And I was 6 when he won the Triple Crown and watched that with my mom. And the impact that had on me. So to me, he's iconic. To others, he may not be.
Most undervalued skill as a rider?
Self-worth.
Who is the greatest horseman or horsewoman in history?
History, that's a hard word.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think Meta is so incredibly brilliant. The things that I have watched her do, the way that she always wants to learn, always wants to learn. Like she has this really delicate tap dance between I can and I can't. And I love watching her sort that out every time she's with her horses, no matter the horse. Like, can I? You know, like, I can't. And always looking for, how do I get better? And she has this implicit knowledge. Like she's not a terrible teacher. She's a great teacher, but she's a terrible teacher because she has so much difficulty describing what it is she does and how she does it.
Totally.
Okay?
I've witnessed that.
Yes. And so being married to her, it's very easy for me to say Meta. Okay. So that's a gimme. Otherwise, I would definitely say Linda Pirelli. I have spent lots of time with Linda. Her ability to read a horse just transcends anything I've ever seen.
Really cool. And finally, mares, stallions, or geldings?
So I don't have any experience with stallions because I'm way too much of a weenie. Although Robley, when I got him, he was a stallion, although he did not behave like one. So I have 2 geldings and a mare. And I love my geldings. And my mare's, I guess, pretty typical mare because she's like, she bites everybody but me. So people talk about having their one heart horse. I really feel like every horse I've had has been my heart horse. So, yes.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jenny.
Thanks for having me, Noëlle.